In this class, we are going to study about the category of Protista, that is the dinoflagellates. So it is the second category of Protista, and before this class we have studied about the first category, that was the chrysophytes. So as you can see from the name, that is dinoflagellates. So di means two and flagella is a locomotory structure of microorganisms. So here these organisms will have two flagella. That is what we understand from the name dinoflagellates. So we will study later how these two flagella are arranged out of the cell and from where do they originate. So first of all, this is what is meant by the name, and let's look at the characteristic of this category. So the members of this category are unicellular, microscopic, that is these are composed of a single cell. These are microscopic, that is these are very small organisms. Apart from that, these are eukaryotic. We know that kingdom Protista is a eukaryotic kingdom. Apart from that, these organisms are photosynthetic. So most of the organisms belonging to this category of dinoflagellates are photosynthetic or autotrophic. A few are exceptions which are a bit saprotrophic in nature, but apart from those things, all the members of this category are photosynthetic. So this is what is meant by this characteristic of this category. So these organisms are unicellular, these are composed of a single cell, and biflagellate. So we can see biflagellate from the name, that is dinoflagellates. Apart from that, these are photosynthetic. Then it is obvious that these are autotrophic organisms, and these are mostly marine. So these are also found in fresh water, but most of the categories of this kingdom of this category, that is the Protista, and in Protista this is the dinoflagellates. So these are mostly marine. Apart from the other categories, these are mostly marine, but we had studied in chrysophytes that some members were marine and some were of fresh water. Likewise, there would be variation in the other categories also. So here this is mostly marine. So this is the important feature of only a few members are present in the freshwater category, or these could also be present in a very moist area like moist soil or marshy areas also. So apart from that, these are multicolored. So one simple or one single member will not be multicolored, but different members will have different colors, which could be red, blue, green, yellow, or other colors like brown or golden brown also. So this brown color that you are seeing here, so it's not exactly brown, but golden brown or brownish like color is the most common color. Apart from brown, these are the other color like blue, yellow, or green or red. So the most common is golden brown. Apart from that, these other colors are also present. Now it depends which pigment is present in this category. So we know that any color in any organism is because of certain pigments. So we know this chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is normally greenish in color or something like greenish blue or bluish green. So obviously this chlorophyll A or C will give the green color. Apart from that, this carotene or the alpha carotene or the beta carotene can give orange color or orangish yellow color, maybe even be yellow color. And this xanthophyll, so this xanthophyll is also responsible for reddish color. So apart from these pigments, a few certain different varieties of pigments are present, and these pigments are responsible for all these colors, that is red, brown, green, blue, yellow. So these members are very different from each other in terms of their color based appearance. Now apart from these things, we have to understand something called as armor, and not armored or unarmored. So we know what is meant by armor. So armor is normally referred to as a protective covering or a protective coating around the body. So in our ancient days, kings and soldiers used to wear a metallic armor. So here also, obviously metallic armor would not be present, but cellulose armor would be present. So there would be some stiff cellulose wall plates in some dinoflagellates, and those dinoflagellates will be called as armored dinoflagellates. But these are not present in all dinoflagellates. Some dinoflagellates have a pellicle layer. So those dinoflagellates which have a smooth pellicle layer, these are called as unarmored. And some have certain stiff cellulose wall plates, and those are called as armored dinoflagellates. So obviously there are two types of dinoflagellates on the basis of armor. So they have a covering called theca or the lorica, which is made up of sculptured plates of cellulose and pectin. So it is mainly cellulose, and a bit of pectin is also present over there. So these are the plates, these are the sculptured wall plates, and these are very stiff cellulose plates, and this is what is giving the armor to the armored dinoflagellates. But the other one is the unarmored, and these do not have such hard or stiff cellulose plates or pectinate plates, but these have certain smooth layer of pellicle. Periplast is also present, but pellicle is less, or pellicle is more common. So periplast is also just out of the cell membrane, which is normally present in a very few dinoflagellates. So these are the features of the armored and unarmored. Now before studying about the flagella, we have to study about something called as grooves. So these flagella are arranged in these grooves. So in our NCERT, it is given that dinoflagellates have two flagella. One is transverse and the other is longitudinal. So we are going to study flagella here, but first of all, where those flagella are present, those structures are these grooves. So there are two grooves. One is transverse and the other is longitudinal. Now this is the transverse groove, which is called as cingulum, or it is also called as girdle or annulus. This is the transverse groove, and in shape this groove is circular. And there is also another groove which is normally longitudinal, and that is called as sulcus. So these two grooves are present, and we have to compare it with the flagella. So there are two flagella, and these two flagella are not same. For example, if normally we expect there are two flagella, then we might expect them to be same, but not. These two flagella are not same, although they are arising from the same spot. These two flagella that are present, they arise or they originate from the same spot. But these are different types of flagella are present here, and but they are originating from the same spot. Now we know there are two grooves, one is transverse and the other is longitudinal. So one flagella is longitudinal, so obviously that flagella would pass through sulcus. So this is the position of the flagella. So this sulcus is a longitudinal groove. So one flagella is longitudinal, which passes into the sulcus. So this is the position of one flagella. Now the other flagella passes through these structures, that is cingulum or girdle or annulus. So obviously this flagella would be transverse. So one flagella is transverse, the other flagella is longitudinal. Why? Because they are passing through these grooves. So this is the reason in NCERT it is given that these two flagella, one of these are longitudinal and the other one is transverse. So now this is the position of the two flagella. So obviously we know what is the purpose of flagella. So the purpose of flagella is locomotion. So locomotion is just movement, just like we have our legs for locomotion, these have flagella, and these have very unique arrangement of flagella. We saw that one flagella is longitudinal and the other is transverse. So these do not normally help them in straight motion, they perform rolling or spinning motion. So these flagella enable rolling motion or spinning motion. So this is the purpose of this flagella. these are not helping the dinoflagellates to move in a single straight direction. These are causing rolling or spinning motion. Why? Because one of the flagella is longitudinal, the other one is transverse. So this is the type of locomotion that this flagella causes. We normally expect flagella to perform linear motion, to give the linear motion to the organism, but here this flagella, these two flagella, that is longitudinal and transverse flagella, these are causing rolling or spinning motion. Now the last thing to remember about this dinoflagellate is the bioluminescence and also the toxins. So bioluminescence is a phenomenon, or it is a process in which the light is emitted from living organisms. Like you must have seen firefly, and firefly emits light. So these organisms have something called granules. So phosphorus granules or something like that structures are present in their cytoplasm, and these granules are responsible for emission of light. And a few of these organisms, for example the Goniolax, so these organisms emit light because of certain granules which are present in their cytoplasm. And the examples are, the most common one is Goniolax. It is given in NCERT, so it is more important, and also Noctiluca and Serratium. So we will study this Serratium when we will study about fission in standard 12. So these examples will again come in other chapters also. So this is the most important examples because it is given in NCERT. So this is what is bioluminescence. So these emit light because of certain granules present in their cytoplasm. Examples are Goniolax, Noctiluca and Serratium. Apart from that, there is a very important line given in NCERT, and that is regarding the toxins secreted by these organisms. So it happens that many categories of dinoflagellates, for example blue dinoflagellates or yellow or green or red or brown, so any of these categories can be undergoing very rapid multiplication. So if these organisms are undergoing very rapid multiplication, these can cause blooms. So it could be yellow bloom, red bloom or green bloom. So red bloom is the most important. And why? Because red dinoflagellates, for example Goniolax, emit certain toxins. So these toxins can kill the other aquatic organisms like fish or the crustaceans or the other invertebrates. So these red dinoflagellates, we have seen there are 5 categories of dinoflagellates on the basis of color. So these red dinoflagellates multiply very rapidly. They reproduce very rapidly, and this is so rapid that the sea in that area appears reddish. So you can imagine how speedily these red dinoflagellates multiply or reproduce, and those are called as red tides. So as you can see from here, very often red dinoflagellates undergo rapid multiplication, thereby making sea appear red, and those are called as red tides. Example is Goniolax. As you can see, it is again coming in the example. So obviously Goniolax is more important as compared to the other two. So these 3 examples are important. Most important is the Goniolax. Now these red dinoflagellates just do not multiply. These also secrete toxins, lots of poisonous substances into the water. And because of those poisonous substances or toxins present in the water, fishes could be killed, or rather other aquatic insect or all different types of invertebrates could be killed, like Porifera, coelentrates and other Echinodermata, the arthropods or the mollusca. All of these could be killed in that area because these toxins generally act on invertebrates, that is those organisms which come under the category invertebrates. Now these toxins are not coming directly into human beings, but these toxins can accumulate in certain shellfishes, and if humans eat those shellfishes, obviously humans can get that toxin. So these toxins are not directly coming into humans, but these can come through the food chain. So obviously if these toxins are present in the water, then these can accumulate in the shellfish, and if humans eat that shellfish, this toxin can come into humans and it can cause fatal paralysis. And the toxin which is most important in our example is the saxitoxin, which is released by the Goniolax catenella. So remember this name, Goniolax catenella. It releases a toxin called as saxitoxin, and it can cause fatal paralysis in humans. So there are various types of paralysis. For example, different body structures could undergo complete stoppage after paralysis. So fatal paralysis generally occurs because of stoppage of certain muscles which regulate our breathing or the cardiac muscles. So these muscles, if they stop working, then it can cause human death. And it normally affects the neuromuscular junction, that is the junction where nerves join the muscles. So this saxitoxin affects our neuromuscular junction, and neuromuscular junction could fail. After that, paralysis could be occur, and then we can die, and that paralysis is called as fatal paralysis. And this phenomenon is called paralytic shellfish poisoning, and in short that is called as PSP, that is paralytic shellfish poisoning. So this fatal paralysis death is normally called as a phenomenon, and that is the paralytic shellfish poisoning. So these toxins are really harmful for also the aquatic animals and for us also, because these toxins can reach humans through the food chain. Obviously these toxins could also get into the bigger fishes. For example, big fishes eat smaller fishes, and we eat normally bigger fishes. So these fishes, through these fishes also we can get these toxins. So we must be careful while eating fishes which are normally growing in such areas where red tides are common. So those areas fishes should not be eaten, because these toxins, especially this saxitoxin, can get into our bloodstream and cause fatal paralysis or PSP, that is paralytic shellfish poisoning. So this is what we have to know about dinoflagellates. So now we have completed our second category of kingdom Protista, that is dinoflagellates. After this we are going to study about the euglenoids.